Begin recording. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Likutey Moharan Shir, Thursday night. We are holding in Torah Chaf, Torah 20, and we are deep into section 10. In fact, we have learned so far that when the Chacham comes to Darshan, there are actually 9 steps that need to be accomplished. The first step that needs to be accomplished is the Chacham needs to bring his staff of strength, which is the schos of his good deeds. And the purpose of this is to subdue the inherent wickedness which is embedded in people. Everybody, has his own struggles and challenges and inclinations, predilections, whatever you want to call it. And when you come to the Chacham, it is the power of the Masim Tovim, of the good deeds of the Chacham. And each one of them is called Tzion Dvarim Elyonim. Each one is a mark of very, very, very high things in the Shemayim. That with this, the force of his good deeds, he actually subdues the wickedness which is inherent in each and every one of us. Then the next thing that he needs to do, he needs to connect himself to the neshamas of all the people who are there. And when he is there, when he does that, he needs to beg HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with begging and supplications, when he's connected with everybody, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should have rachmanos on him and bestow upon him diburim that are hot as burning coals and chidush Torah, and then the diburim come down. And when the diburim come down, these are the diburim that are shach to every single person who is there, with whom the Chacham connected himself with. It feels became Tfilas Rabbim, Kodesh Baruch Hu hears it. It adds Kedusha above, and Torah comes down. The Kedusha that was added above is now jam-packed into the Torah that comes down. It's a very powerful Torah. It's very forceful. And from every letter of the Torah, the Chidusha Torah, that the Chacham was Mechadesh, an angel is created. So the entire Torah creates a great army. It creates a great army of angels. So the Hashem iten omer, Hashem will give, omer will give speech, will give saying, in other words, will give divrei Torah, and the Vasrois that announced Tzvarav, a great army, a great battalion of angels. Now, these angels are spiritual forces, and they are both angels and they are messengers. They are messengers to go to retrieve the power, the force of sword and bloodshed from Esav, the minister of violence, and take the power from him and subdue and defeat all those who block the way from getting to Eretz Yisrael. Because the main goal of the whole thing is to get to Eretz Yisrael. And these people they block us from coming to Eretz Yisrael. So the story starts with the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, when there's a neshama, which is called Miriam, which is a neshama that has to go through tremendous amount of suffering. And that neshama is the portal for all the commentaries of the Torah. Then the Chacham doesn't need to go through all these 9 steps. It's only when that neshama is mistalik, that neshama passes away, the Chacham has to go through the entire all the steps put together and bring down the Divrei Torah, connect himself to everybody, bring down Divrei Torah. Malachim are created from that, and these Malachim afterwards go and take the sword's form, the force of Esav, and Esav's force. With this, we subdue the force of those who block our access to Eretz Yisrael. Now, the access to Israel means both physically. They don't like people to come to Israel b'chlal. They say you shouldn't come, belongs to the Palestinians, whatever, all kinds of shtuyot. And on top of that, there is also the inyan that once you're in Eretz Yisrael, they tell you that's Yisrael, it's you can buy a villa in Caesarea, and the main thing is to get, aged Angus beef, and that Eretz Yisrael is like a land like in all the other lands, that it's not the main reason why we want to get to Eretz Yisrael is because we want this spiritual power that Eretz Yisrael gives a person. And that power is the ability to get up from one step to the next, to go up the ladder of Avodas Hashem. It's very appropriate to Parshas Vayetze. Yaakov Avinu gets the ladder and sees the ladder. Kadosh Baruch Hu promises him that he will come back. He promises him protection from all those who block his way from Eretz Yisrael. So he has Esav blocking his way, he has Lavan blocking his way, and so Kadosh Baruch Hu promises him that he will have protection. And as we know, Mama Musgar, as we know, that Yaakov Avinu sat for 14 years in the yeshiva of Shem Va'ever in Tzfas, 14 years, and he didn't sleep. And he learned Torah. And from this Torah, the Malachim were created. When he lay down to sleep, and in the dream he saw the ladder of going up from one Madrega to the next, he saw that Malach Elokim only v'yordim bo. Rashi says these are angels of HaKadosh Baruch Hu going up and going down. So they said this is the Malachim Eretz Yisrael going up, Malachim of Chutz La'aretz are coming down. When Yaakov Avinu comes back to Eretz Yisrael, it says, and Yaakov, the Malachim Eretz Yisrael came to him, and these are the Malachim he sent to Esav. So the same kind of process is repeating himself over here. So this is, in a general fashion, this is what the Torah is about. And now we are getting into the specific where it is, that's the culmination of this particular Torah. We learned that in the Sefer Zohar, in Pashas Truma, it's called Sefer Tzniusa. Sefer Tzniusa is the Sefer that Yaakov Avinu wrote. We know that Avraham Avinu wrote Sefer Yetzirah, and Yaakov Avinu wrote Sefer Tzniusa. 5 prokim of this exist in Sefer Zohar and in Pashas Truma, and this Torah is on the 3rd parak, and it says Tisha Tikunin Yikirin Ismasur Dikno Haino Zoken Ayoshev Yeshivo lidrosh. So Kumuvan, obviously, I mekash myself to all the people who are here, who are watching, who are listening. That Hashem HaKadosh Baruch should help us and give us the burim. It will help us, B'ezrat Hashem, bring down the message for that each and every one of us, needs, because, we're not, that's where there is still ways to go. So this is what he's saying. We said before in the very beginning, we just explained that in Olam Atzilus is basically divided into two parts. There is the upper part, which is called Arich Anpin, which is the great face. Probably actually the actual translation comes out funny in English because it means the long face. That's not what we mean to say. And then you have, this is, in Arich Anpin, this is a level which is totally unreachable by us. And this is where you have the 13 rectifications of the beard. This is what we said in Yom Kippur many, many times over and over and over again. We're talking about, this is Kaviochel, the beard of Hashem Yisborach, as it were. That the beard is a representation of the favor and the compassion of Kodesh Baruch Hu. There are 13 of them. Now, underneath that Arich Anpin, there is a lower level, which is, it's still Olam Atzilus, but it's more accessible. It's called Ze'er Anpin. Ze'er Anpin means the small face. It's the fact that it's small face means that it's constricted. It's already small. Arich Anpin, it's the Rachamim without end. In Ze'er Anpin, this is where the face is constricted. It is smaller. So from the 13 tikkunim of Arich Anpin, 9 come down to Ze'er Anpin. And there are great secrets, great rachamim in those 9 tikkunim. And so Rabbeinu says, the language of the third parak is Tisha Tikkunim Yikirin, 9 precious rectifications. Itmasru Ladikna, were given to the beard. Now, Rabbeinu here interprets the word beard, Hainu lazoken hayoshev b'yeshiva lidrosh. Zaken means the beard, and zakon means the beard, and zoken means the Talmid Chacham. It says zoken is zekon hachachma. So, Al Pi Kabbalah, it says this is zoken, this is the zakon, this is the beard. That these are the measures of compassion that come down from Arich Anpin to Ze'er Anpin. Rabbeinu says this is the 9 rectifications that we're giving to the Dikna. You know what Dikna is? Lazokena Yoshev Yeshiva. That is the Rav that is Mechaj the Chidushim. Yoshev Yeshiva Lidrosh, he sits in the Yeshiva to dash in the Torah. And he was given these 9 bechinas, these 9 steps that he needs to accomplish. As we said before, when the neshama that's called Miriam, that has the be'er, has the portal of all the commentaries and elucidations of the Torah is still in the world, you don't have to go through this process of the 9 tikkunim. But once Miriam passes away, that neshama passes away, the portal is closed. It causes a great commotion. Now the Chacham has to go through these 9 tikkunim. So he said, these are the 9 bechinos. Aleph, kaches amata. The first tikkun is take the staff of strength. This is the right, the strength that comes from all the mitzvahs and maasim tovim of the Chacham. That's the first thing that he needs to come, and with this he subdues the inherent evil and bad inclinations in the people that are there. Second, v'hakas hakelo, get the congregation together. In other words, lechniara osam, now you need to subdue their wickedness. That's the second tikkun. Once you're there, it says, v'dibata el hasela, now you're supposed to speak to the selah. As we said before, that was the mistake of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he used the mata to get from the diburim from the selah. That's not the way it's supposed to do it. The mata is supposed to, the step number aleph, you need for the step number bet in order to be makal the Eda. And then you're connecting yourself with dibata el selah. You have to speak to the selah b'tachanunim kanal, in other words, with supplications, with rachamim, to beg, in a low voice, and with great humility. The fourth tikkun is le'neim. You have to do it in front of the people. In other words, you have to connect yourself. The chacham needs to connect himself to everybody while we're there. That's the fourth tikkun. The fifth tikkun is la'amshich dibur esh. Once you're begging to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the lever and the supernal heart opens, and five diburim, very hot diburim, come down. That's the fifth tikkun. The sixth tikkun is lamshich Torah, because the dibura esh, it seems that the lamshich dibura esh, lamshich Torah happens at the same time, but this is really two separate steps. The dibura esh, the five diburim, the really hot diburim, are the kalim, are the chariots for the Torah. The Torah's emes, for a person to be zoiche, for the chacham to be zoiche, to dibura emes la'amitai, which have the power to bring everybody to where they're supposed to get. The diburim have to be hot as fire. So number 6 is lamshich Torah. The Torah has to come down. Now this Torah has to be, once, if everything was done properly, that he subdued the wickedness of the people, that he congregated the people in order to subdue their wickedness. You spoke to the selah with supplications, with the chanunim, le'neim, by connecting yourself with each and every one of them. So it becomes tfilas tzibur. And you are able to, number 5, to bring down the diburim that hot as fire, which brings to number 6 to bring down Torah. Now the Torah comes down. Now what the Torah does is, number 7 is Brias HaMalachim. From the Torah that you brought down, from the Torah that is brought down, every single letter of the Torah is a malach. It's a spiritual power. It's a spiritual force. They're great armies, and their power is commensurate with how much kedusha was in the Torah that was brought down. How much kedusha was brought down is dependent on how many people were there. And if the chacham connected himself to everybody, and if he asked with tachanunim and didn't force the issue, and so on and so on, everything was done right. The malachim was created, then brings to the 8th step, the kabel akoch me'edom, to receive the force from Edom, who is the custodian of the sword and bloodshed, to put down and to defeat those that hate us and want to keep us away from Torah. And once this is done, you're using their force, you arrive to the 9th tikkun, which is Lov al Eretz Yisrael Kanal. You come to Eretz Yisrael, you're zeichet to come to the of Eretz Yisrael. Now you have the sulam, you have the ladder in which you can go in Avodas Hashem from one madrega to the next. And this is what Rabbeinu says. Ve'elo tikkunim, these 9 tikkunim that we have mentioned, it mosar lezaken aderes. All this was given to the sage who darshans the Torah. And he says in the Zohar, it says, Kol mad itmar v'lo isgalio. In other words, the sage has to darshan what? All of that was hidden and it's no longer evident. What are we talking about? Rabbeinu says this is the remez al nishmas pchinas Miriam. That's rather than the neshama of pchinas Miriam that was mistalik. That's the portal that was closed. That which was hidden and and not revealed anymore means the portal. When the neshama passed away, that portal that all the chachamim got the Bira Torah, they didn't have to go through all these 9 steps because it was available. So neshama took care of it. It's no longer available. The portal has closed. Remez al nishmas pchinas mirisham nistalik. Then the explanations of the Torah was forgotten. Now, ishtokach has 2 meanings. Ishtokach, one meaning is that it was forgotten. Shachachti, I forgot. But in Aramaic, they also say ishtokach means being found. When we say something which is uncommon, it says lo shachiach, it's not easily found. So you have here a loshon that means both things. It means forgotten, it means lost, and it means found. The word ishtokach can mean both things. So it's meant ishtokach. Ishtokach means ishtokach achshav, now it is being found. Now it's being found through that stage. All that was forgotten, all that was forgotten by the neshama, because the neshama was mistalik, now it's being found by the chacham. So we have here both the union of ishtokach as being found, the chacham reveals it. All that was forgotten, ishtokach, by the neshama that was nistalik. Now is actually going one rectification after the next in the Zohar itself. Tikkun kadmo says in Sefer Desnius, the first tikkun, nimin al nimin, hair upon hair, hair after hair after hair. Mikame pitche udnin, the udnin, from the holes, the openings of the ear, the hair goes all the way down until Reisha de Puma. It comes to the head of the mouth. We're talking about the edges of the lips. So the hair comes down from to where the ears are. It goes all the way. And that's the first tikkun. That's the first tikkun of the beard. The beard has 9 parts that we're talking about. The first one starts from the udnin ad Reisha de Puma. So Rabbeinu explains, nimin, those hairs, pchinas sa'oris. This is pchinas hair, sa'oris. Now sa'oris, they have a very special letter right here. This is shin. Shin sometimes has a dot on the left side, on top. Then we read it like we read samach. Sometimes the dot is on the right side. Then we read it as a shin, which is, it's very strange because every letter should has its own role, has its own way of sounding. Here in a shin, by putting a dot either on the right side or on the left side, you are changing the way that it sounds. On the right side sounds a shin. On the left side it sounds a samach. The reason for it is for drasha. The word sa'aros can have a meaning both as a shin and both as a samach. As a samach, sa'aros, when the dot is on the left side, we're talking about hair. We're talking sa'ara, kechuta sa'ara, very, very thin hair. When the dot is on the right side, then it means something else completely. It means Pchinas Sharei Tzion. Saros, it's not Sharos, it's Sha'aros. These are the openings, these are the gates. It's also a measurement, L'sha'er, to estimate. So Sar is here, Shar is a gate. It's Sharei Tzion. This comes to say, Mate Uzcho Yishlach Mi Tzion Kanal. We explain that that staff of strength, where does it come? Where does the Chacham gets it? He gets it, that's the inherent force and power of the merit of his good deeds. And we said the good deeds and the mitzvahs are all, symbols to very exalted inyonim in the Shemayim. So they say, Mata uzcha yishlach mitzion. Your force of strength, your staff of strength is comprised from these little dots, these little symbols, mitzion. Tzion is just a symbol. It's just a simon, it's a symbol. A little mitzvah. That mitzvah is a staff of strength. It's like an atomic, it's a non-conventional weapon. Canal. Mikame pitcha deudnin, from in front of the openings of the ears. Hainu kodem sheshamu, before they heard. Im yicholim lekabel, before they even heard, if they can, if they Am Yisrael, how did they receive the Torah? They didn't even find out, can we understand it? We don't understand it. Are we willing to get it? We're not willing to get it. Am Yisrael, before they receive the Torah, what they say? Nasa v'nishma. So before they even heard that they can be Makabel, they already said, okay. He says, before the pitchonim, before the opening of the ears. That's before they heard if they can or they can't accept at Puma until the opening of the mouth. It means they already opened their mouth and said, Nasa, we're going to do. That the Gemara says that we're talking about here Am Yisrael that put the mouth before their ears. They say Nasa v'nishma. They already agreed to accept the Torah before they even knew what it was. So it says this is the Chacham has to bring his staff of strength. Before they even found out they can, in other words, in order to dash in the Torah. Tikkun Tinyano, the second tikkun, Mereisha Hai LeReisha Hai. Here we're talking about, we're talking about the mustache, from one side all the way to the other side. What are we talking about from this end to the other end? Beinu says, now we're talking about defeating their wickedness. He takes them out of the domain of Sitra Achra. This is Reisha, high Reisha. This is to that end. From this domain to that domain, from that head to that head. That is the second tikkun. With this, he is subduing their wickedness. And we're going forth to the third tikkun. Tikkun et lisod, the third tikkun, ishtokach mitchois tre nukvin. Here we're talking about that is the area that is found underneath both nostrils. It says orcho malia. We're talking about a crevice between, right, that comes in between the nose. Malia is really, it's filled with hair. Delois chazia. In other words, you can't see that part because you have the mustache. It's really, it's like there's a little channel in between, in the middle of the mustache, but you can't see it because it's filled with hair. is Aino Pchinas Chotem. Here talking about Chotem. Now we're talking about the nose. These are the nostrils. These are part of the Chotem. As we know from Torah Bes, Chotem is the famous euphemism to Tefillah. Pchinas v'dibarta el hasela. You have to speak to the Selah. You have to bear Kodesh Baruch Hu. B'pchinas v'tilos yechton lach. And we says that tilosi might tehilo might filo echton lach. It's pchinas chotem. Or chumalya, that which is said. Listen, that particular passageway is really full with hair. It means or chumalya means the way is full. Why? Ki en machzor l're'av. Because all those who fear Kodesh Baruch Hu never lack anything. V'zemalyo v'yiro. It says that the yira pchinas filo. Malya, it is filled. Archa malya v'yira pchinas filo yis Hashem tisalo. Here we're talking about the tefillah, the pchinas chotem baricho be'ich Hashem. What you need to do is you have in this one specific passage. It said there is a bare channel that is going down from under the nose that is bare and it's covered by hair and therefore it's unknown. So there's a lot of different details that is filled there. One is the chotem. This is the tefillah. Then it says then it says oh chamalia. That particular passage is full. That is a remez that all those who daven, all those who fear Hashem, because the tefillah is talia in a yira, is malia. They're full. They have everything that they need. It says v'yira he b'chinas tefillah yis Hashem tisalo. There, this is the tefillah. And b'chinas achotem b'chinas barich v'yis Hashem. Now that which we said, yeah, okay, there's a gap here, and that gap is filled. So whenever the tefillah is, there's no machzor. But it also says something else. It says, and it's not seen. Why do we need to know that the gap is unseen? The lo ischazio. So Rabbeinu explains this is how the tefillah is supposed to be. The lo ischazio, that is unseen. Ki tzorech lahaktin es atzmo. You have to belittle yourself. V'lo yisle b'schusoi. That the chocham will not demand the Torah with the schus of his mitzvahs. He says, I'm a chacham, I'm a tzaddik, I'm doing this for the people, I'm doing it for myself, so I deserve to have it. He said, that's not the way you daven for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's not the right style. You should not supposed to boast, to show yourself as Mr. Big before the Melech. So you have to lower yourself down. This is the third tikkun of the tefillah, of how the tefillah is supposed to be, with tefillah, berachamim, b'yeshamayim. If you do it that way, it'll be totally full. Now we got to the fourth tikkun, which is supposed to connect himself to everybody's there. It says, tikkun revio, ilin ischapin mehai gisa, v'hai gisa. Here we're talking about the cheeks. It's the lower part of the cheeks that are covered with hair from this side to this side. It says mehai gisa or mehai gisa. Hainu, this is a remez. Hainu pchinas is kashrus im nishmosayim. Now you're talking about connecting to the neshamas of all the people that are there. They're covering him. Like the hair are covering the cheeks from both sides. The people that come to the Chocham cover him up, as it were, from every side. That was the fourth tikkun. Now we're getting to the fifth tikkun. Okay? This fifth tikkun is talking about, if you remember, you're supposed to bring down diburim that are as hot as burning coal. Tikkun HaChamisha, the fifth tikkun, is chazion trei tapuchin sumkin kevarda. You see two apples that are red as roses. as roses. Here we're talking about the cheeks that are above the hair. You know, when somebody whose face is shining with kedusha, his face is red, has red cheeks. You know, they say about Reb Nosson that his cheeks, his face was red all the time. From the chef of kedusha used to come out of him, and those that were choilek on him, they actually said that he was drunk all the time because his face was always red, but it was red the kedusha. So here we're talking about these. It says the cheeks are round, they're called apples, and they are red as roses. Tapuchin, what is tapuchin? Tapuchin is on one hand, it sounds like an apple, but it's all tapuchin is also the same as mafteach, the lock of the heart. This is the thing that unlocks the supernal heart. Niftochim shenichmarach meleva elyon. This is when the leva elyon, the supernal heart of Kadosh Baruch Hu, is filled with tremendous compassion. V'nishpo diburim chamim. And what comes forth is a plethora of fire-hot diburim. Diburei esh, fire diburim, b'chinat sunki kavada. This is as red as rose. Here the red means as red as fire. Okay? That was the fifth tikkun. Now we're talking about the sixth tikkun. Okay? That is bringing down the Torah. Tikkun shesisoy. This is the sixth tikkun. Bechad chute talion ukmin takifin ad chedvoy. Here we're talking about the beard. The beard is coming down. That's the main part of the beard that is showing in the front. It says it all looks like one single block of hair. It looks as if it is hanging on one hair, just like everything is hanging like on one hair like this, everything is hanging down. In the 9 tikkunim in Zeir Anpin, the hair are black, because Zeir Anpin is the younger version, as it were, because there it's Pchinas Dinim. But in the hair of the 13 tikkunim, in Arich Anpin, then these are white hairs, because this is already Kula Rachamim. In the 9 tikkun, the hair is still black. So it says the 6th tikkun is Bechad Chutata, in one hair, one single strand, are hung, a whole mass of hair, Ukmin, black, Takifin, very, very strong, the hair of the beard over here is grizzled, it's strong. Ad Chedvoy, go all the way down to the chest. The other part of the Zohar, Ad Me'oi, Rabbeinu says, it comes all the way to the Me'an. It goes all the way in. Ze Pchinas Hamshochas HaTorah. This talks about bringing down the Torah. Because the Torah, Pchinas Taltalim Shcheres K'orev. In Shir HaShirim, which is the holiest of all the Sfarim of the Tanakh, of the Bible. It says, when Knesset Israel is praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he says, Taltalov, the curls of my beloved's hair, Taltalim Shcheres, it says, Taltalim Shcheres K'orev, it says, these are curls that are black as ravens. So the Gemara says, what are we talking about? Taltalim Shcheres K'orev, we're talking about Taltalim in his Tile Tilim Shalaloches. Piles upon piles upon. Taltalim means Tile Tilim, piles upon piles upon piles of halachas, which means when the Torah comes down, when it's proper, when it's done properly, all the preparation is done properly, the Torah comes down, comes a great plethora, a great bounty of halachas that come down. What does it mean, halachas? Not just what the Shulchan Aruch says. Of course, this is the very basics. Without it, nothing moves. But also, all the dibur of the Chacham is great musar, and it's great eitzah of how to get to Kodesh Baruch Hu, how to battle, the Yetzer Hara. What do you do when you fail? What do you do when you succeed? What do you do when somebody comes to you and asks you, how do you know that? Where do you take this from? All these inyonim, all these eitzes, the Torah is called 613 eitzes, advice. So each one is called halacha. Torah Vav Rabbeinu says that knowledge of what to do, to give an answer, to have an answer at every given point in time in Avodas Hashem, is called Boki B'Halacha. It means that you are well versed in how to walk and how to advance Avodas Hashem. So that's why the Torah comes down. It's called Tile Tilim Shel Halachos. Anim Shochem Ad Chedvoi. Rabbeinu says Ad Chedvoi, Ad Meoi. Well, Ad Chedvoi means the chest. Ad Meoi means the intestines. B'vchinas v'toiroscha b'toch me'ai. Now, Toroscha b'toch me'ai, this is a whole different level of Torah. You can learn Torah, and you know, Baruch Hashem, you understand it. You can be a doctor for Torah, professor Torah, Dr. Torah. You understand, you know. He says, but it's a whole different ball game when the Torah is in your intestines, as it were, that it's inside you. It means this is what you are and who you are. The Torah is not an added thing on you, but it's who you are. The Torah that we need is the Torah b'toiroscha b'toch me'ai. Your Torah is in my intestines. Chazal said on this particular Chazal, v'toiroscha b'toch me'ai, that David HaMelech said, Ad shata mispalel sheyikansu divrei Torah b'livcha, until you arrive at the point that you want that the divrei Torah will enter your heart, that you'll really feel them, and that'll change you. You should be mispalel shelo yikansu ma'adonim b'soch me'echa. You should daven that you shouldn't have no gluttony, you shouldn't have, kinds of things that taste good in your mouth. That's one of the big problems in being able to be Torah, not just learn Torah, but to become Torah. So the saying of Torah, your Torah is inside my stomach, means that I am Torah. It's not just I just learned Torah. That's the kind of Torah David HaMelech wanted. And he says, V'tal b'chad chuto, and that which he said, it's hanging in one strand of hair. This comes to allude to a different aspect. That the vicinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hanging on a thread. In other words, over there, you're talking an area which is as stable as nitroglycerin. In other words, this is very, very touchy business. When Chachamim are dealing with air with levels that are so high, when it's tzaddikim on such a high level, that they are able to bring such a Torah that goes into the me'ayim, into the innards, into the intestines of every person, that the people can live the Torah, not just learn the Torah, but live the Torah. Now these Chachamim, Kadosh Baruch Hu is particular with them, they're dealing with very sensitive issues. So over there, Svivosov Nis'ora Me'oid. Now we're talking about Sa'ora. Before we said Sa'ora is showering, the lev is open. Now the Sa'ora is about Nis'ora Me'oid. The Kadosh Baruch Hu says, now we're talking about it as thin as a hairbreadth. Kadosh Baruch Hu is medacted with the tzaddikim, the smallest little thing Kadosh Baruch Hu, checks with them. At the Kadosh Baruch Hu, medactim et tzaddikim kechut Sa'ora. Kadosh Baruch Hu is makpid with the tzaddikim as a hairbreadth. It doesn't let them veer away from the way, because they are already dealing with, like, if you're talking about the janitor, okay, so the janitor, he put the waste basket in this end, or in this end, or he did wash that particular corridor and did not wash that particular corridor. No, it's not a big deal. People are not that makbid. Maybe you're talking about, the CEO and or the assistant, the CEO, and he misplaces something or doesn't do something needs to be done. Over there, the consequence and ramifications are going to be far greater, because the higher your stature, the more is at stake. The more is at stake, the more the authorities are makpid with you. When chas v'chalel the tzaddikim, they damage, they stray at her breath. Azai en koyach beyadom lamshich el halachos. This is what we said before, that the mistake of Moshe Rabbeinu was that he just misunderstood what the Kodesh Baruch Hu meant. It was just a mistake. It was an honest mistake. Kodesh Baruch Hu says, take the staff, gather the Edo, and speak to the seller, in front of their eyes. So Moshe remembered, when the last time, what does it mean? It meant to hit the rock. What is supposed to make the staff for? To hit the rock. But it's not the same, because the first time was 40 years earlier. Miriam was still around. That neshama, the portal of the Torah, was still open. You didn't have to go through all these 9 steps. Everything was open. So Moshe Rabbeinu made a mistake. He made a slight mistake, a hairbreadth. Instead of speaking to the seller, he hit it. That means HaKadosh Baruch Hu medakdek tzaddikim, just a slight misunderstanding. It's not that Moshe didn't do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted him to do. That's the way I understood it. So by the tzaddikim, it's not shaykh already. They don't do something that they know HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. This is only shaykh by us, chas v'chalila. But the tzaddikim, it's not shaykh. It's just that they don't understand how those. You should have. It was imperative upon you to look deeper, to investigate the matter deeper, understand exactly what the Kodesh Baruch Hu meant. If you didn't do it in the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, that is called a pgam. It's just a hairbreadth. And achinami, Kodesh Baruch Hu is makbid tzaddikim kechut asara. The minute they do this, they don't have the koyach to bring down these halachas. So, what we're talking about, let's just for a minute stop here, to continue with the actual text. Mitzvah Hashem next week. But just to talk about this particular union just a little bit. What is Nagia for Aslam Maisa? Is when you're looking at that the Kodesh Baruch Hu is particular, he is watchful, but the tzaddikim is makbid like a hairbreadth. It seems like unfair. I mean, like, what's the deal with that? That's unfair. Shouldn't it be that the bigger I am, the more leeway I should get? Well, the answer is that's the chesed of the Kodesh Baruch Hu. The higher you go, when you do something which is wrong, Kodesh Baruch Hu immediately exacts kaviyachol, it's his pound of flesh on the spot, because the Kodesh Baruch Hu atones you on the spot. And when you look at your reality, you can have untoward thoughts that for a little moment, you can have something in you rebels and say, like, what the hell? Why do I have to, or whatever it is? Why do I have to do? The next thing you know, you go ahead and you bang your toe. If you're watchful at your life, if you're watchful of what thoughts are going in your head, what cravings are you listening to, what you're not listening to, what you're yielding to, what you're fending off, you'll notice that the higher you go, the reaction of Kodesh Baruch Hu is more immediate. And that's a chesed. Because Kodesh Baruch Hu wants you to continue to get closer to Him and get things right and go up the ladder. As we said before, I just want to repeat it for those who were not here with us. The last time we spoke about this, we mentioned that which Rav Dessler says about Gan Eden, that if you take all the moments of happiness in your lifetime and you condense into 1 minute, if you take all the moments of happiness of all the people in your town, condense into 1 minute. Take all the people in your country, condense to 1 minute. All the people in the world, every single moment of happiness, all the kings, all the tycoons, all those, every single moment of pleasure and happiness, condense it to yourself to 1 moment. Then you take all those minutes of pleasure and contentment and happiness of the entire humanity, from Adam Arishon until the end of days, and you condense it to 1 moment. You can imagine how explosively happy this 1 moment is. All this does not come close to a single moment of Olam Haba. That sort of puts in perspective the Holocaust and everything else that people are going through. Because when you look at things just from the eyesight, the point of view of Olam Hazeh, it's a big problem. But the minute you take a little step back, you realize Olam Haba. The same thing when you realize when some people are going through serious hardships and have serious Yisurim. If you have big Rachmanas, Rabbeinu says Sichas Haran should have great compassion to feel somebody else's pain. But the same thing, you need to understand what Gehenna is. As one of our Rosh Hashiva says, you want to understand what Gehenna is? Turn on your gas range, okay? And put your hand under the fire for a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, a minute. Imagine that the nerves in your hand do not die, but they keep on keeping on. All right? Imagine this for 12 months. You go a little over the fire, over the fire, literally over the fire. Imagine that for 12 months, Lo Aleinu. This is Gehenna. Rav Cheshen told me it's all the Yisurim the person have in 80 years. If he would have Chas v'Chalil Yisurim from the moment he comes in the world to the moment he goes out, all this does not measure up to 1 single burn of Gehenna. That puts a whole different kind of perspective onto what it is we're going through. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu does you this immense favor of exacting your punishment right adjacent to where you strayed. 2 favors he did to you. A, you realize you did something wrong, so you can do tshuva. Secondly, he saved you from Gehenna for Olam Haba. Beseder, listen, thank you so very much. I should have a good Shabbos. Without Hashem, what's a Shabbos? We will learn Sichas Haran. I hope everybody will be here. But I'll send you the emails to everyone. Everyone should have, let me just 1 second. There's the view, gallery. Everybody is over here. Just participants. And anybody who wants to say a word, you're welcome to unmute yourself now. Should have a tzlocha Rabbo. And good Shabbos to everyone. And Shkor for being here.
Rav, I wanted to ask,
Yeah.
where do we know how Gehenom is? Where do we know how Gehenom is? We don't see anywhere it's written what's Gehenom.
Well, the Gemara says about the Rav Avachano when he came